It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the movies of June 10th, 1994. Only 3 movies to look at today, but some notable movies. Let's go ahead and jump right on into it. Let's start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that was Keanu Reeves, Dennis Hopper, and Sandra Bullock in the action thriller Speed. So Speed was sold basically kind of as Die Hard on a bus, which coincidentally enough, after this movie became such a big success, everyone was selling these action movies as Speed on a Speed on a cruise boat, which would be the sequel. But we will get to that one a little bit later on. But in terms of the original Speed, it's an action classic, man. It's a movie that I love to death. John DeBont directed this movie after many years as a cinematographer. This is his first movie he directed, and for a first film, he does a pretty damn good job. It's a really great film that really has a great story to tell, a great action story to tell. You got this bus that's been rigged by by the terrorist Dennis Hopper in this, and if the bomb's on the bus, and of course if it falls underneath 50 miles an hour, it blows up. And so the majority of the movie is trying to make sure that this bus keeps going and everybody's out of the bus and all that. And it's really tense. It's after all these years, you can still watch it and still get very tense. You still get those chills. Like, how are they going to get out of this? Even after you've seen this movie so many times. At least I know for a fact that after I've seen this movie so many times, I still get that feeling. And Keanu Reeves just makes it work, man. I think this was the first movie that everybody started to realize that, hey, Keanu Reeves isn't playing Bill in every single movie he's in. He's actually a pretty decent action star. I mean, before this he did Point Break, and then he was in Dracula, and then this was the movie that really changed it around for him. This is the movie that everyone saw him as kind of the next big action star. Dennis Hopper playing the bad guy is great as well. And it was also the film that kind of introduced Sandra Bullock to the world. This was the first movie that really drew her into superstardom, because the films that she would later get all these films that followed afterward. And really, there's nothing more than I can say about Speed that hasn't been said already. It's a movie that every time I watch it, every time I see it, like I say, I still get those chills. I still get that tense action that the movie promises. It's a film that still holds up over numerous years. I mean, it's a movie that's held up very well over the test of time. And it's just so much fun to watch, man. It's a movie that I can go back to and watch over and over again. I can never get tired of it. Speed, need I say more? Fantastic film. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. But most of you probably have already seen it. But with that said, let's move on to the next movie, and that is the sequel, City Slickers 2, The Legend of Curly's Gold. Yeah, once you get the director of Leonard Part 6 to direct your movie, that's not a good sign going forward. And, if you can't even get Bruno Kirby to come back from the first movie, they get Billy Crystal, they get Daniel Stern back, they can't get Bruno Kirby to come back, but they get John Lovitz in here. Needless to say, this is not a very good movie. This is one of those typical comedy sequels that's trying to recapture the magic of the first movie, but it basically just rehashes the same plot of the first movie, and it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense the way they do this. Like, they bring Jack Palance back in here to play a different character because, his character gets killed off in this movie, and it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense whatsoever. The only reason they brought him back in here as a different character is because, hey, Jack Palance won an Academy Award for City Slickers back in 1991, so he's, of course, one of the biggest stars of the movie. We gotta bring him back. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And he's playing the identical twin brother, which is kind of a lame attempt to kind of bring him back in there. Like I said, the movie tries way too hard to recapture the magic of the first movie, and that is usually a lot of the problems with these comedy sequels, is that they don't really have an intention of expanding a story or continuing a story from the previous film. They just want to rehash the same thing as the first movie and sucker people into going to see it again. And usually that's why most of these comedy sequels only make half back of what the original film made. And that's pretty much what happens here. The movie wasn't a big hit. It made decent money, but it only made half of what the first movie made. Sometimes you get a good comedy sequel every once in a while, but this is the prime example of a sequel that's just doing the same thing over and over again, and just be glad it wasn't a big success, because I'm pretty sure they would have made this into a trilogy, much like the Hangover movies, and it would have been the same thing all over again, but they didn't, thankfully, and this movie kind of explains why. It's not a very good movie. It's basically a retread of the first movie. Characters are dumbed down, the comedy isn't as funny, it's just made because the first movie was such a big success, and that's pretty much all you can say about this movie. Just watch the first City Slickers, and you'll be good. It's easily the best of the two films, and again, I don't think I need to say more about this one. City Slickers 2, it's not a very good movie. It's not a very good sequel. So let's move on to the last movie, which is, I guess, a better sequel. I don't know if you want to consider it a sequel, but it's the second film in Krzysztof Kieslowski's Three Colors trilogy, and that is White. So White is basically about equality. You've got this film depicting a shy man who, after being left by his wife, the wife being played by Julie Delpy, who you would know later on from the Before trilogy, his wife leads him in humiliating circumstances in Paris. He loses his money, his residence, his friends, and he's become a beggar in Paris, and he begins his effort to restore equality through his life through revenge. And there's a good way to interpret this movie. I think Roger Ebert said it best, that this was kind of an anti-comedy, and stuff like Blue was kind of an anti-tragedy, and then Red later on down the road would become an anti-romance film. And it's an interesting way to look at these movies. I think all three of these movies do a very good job of creating something unique and different while feeling also kind of connected at the same time. I really like what they did with the first movie, Blue, and I really like what they do here. It's very different from the previous film, but it feels like it has an identity of its own that can make it stand out more than the previous film. And it's a really good movie. It's a really good film from a really good trilogy of films. I don't know if I can add any more to it. I mean, honestly, these movies are really entertaining and in their own very unique way, and they can be seen as various different things. And again, they can connect to what the original concept of all three of these films are supposed to be very well. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got for you on that one. So that's Three Colors, White. And so on that note, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. Next time we meet, we get to the good stuff on June 17th. We have Jack Nicholson starring in Wolf. We have Ted Danson, Macaulay Culkin in Getting Even with Dad. And we have the limited release of not only one of the biggest hits of the year, one of the biggest animated movies of all time, and that is, of course, Disney's The Lion King. So, some interesting movies to talk about next time around, and we'll jump into those on the next episode. But until then, as always, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the plays on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I will see you guys tomorrow for another episode. So thank you for watching, I'll see you next time, and until then, as always, take care.